Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another webinar for Focus Activity 8 to 10, well, levels 8 to 10. And today we're looking at writing a CV. Now, for all those who don't know who I am, my name is Andre, as you can see on the screen, and I'm from Barbados, all the way from the Caribbean, but now I'm living in Rome and, of course, a teacher at my English school. So once again, welcome and good afternoon. Hope everything is going well with you. I know that this lockdown has forced you to find activities to do, to keep busy, and of course, all of us at my English school are here, of course, to help you to continue to learn English, and of course, to help you to find activities from day to day. So, of course, the webinars are here for you. We're here to give you as much input and as much advice as possible, and of course, help you to improve your English. So let's look at today's focus activity, writing a CV. Now, what is a CV? A CV is short for a curriculum vitae, which is basically information that you give about your education, your work history, in order to apply for employment or to find a job at a business or a company. So it's very important for the employer or the company to find out more about you and to find out about your history in terms of education and your work experience. So let's look at it. So the CV, some people also call the CV a resume. But the difference between the CV and the resume is that the CV is more detailed. It has more detailed information and it gives more specific details about your work history, the job positions you've had. While on the other hand, the resume is more of a shorter, compact, concise summary of your experiences as well. So the resume is less detailed while the CV is more detailed. Good. So writing a CV. In this focus activity, writing a CV in English and writing a cover letter. Now, what's the difference between the CV and the cover letter? Well, the CV, as I mentioned before, is all the detailed information about your history, education, and work, while the cover letter is basically a letter of application for the job. So basically a normal letter, but a business type letter requesting an interview with the employer or the company. Of course, giving specific details, short specific details about your skills and answering questions about why you are the best fit or the best person for the job. So that is what the cover letter is. It's like an application for the actual job, while the CV is just the detailed information about your experience as well as your education. So a cover letter is just like an introduction, basically, for the employer, just to get a little bit of information about you and why you're applying for the job. Okay, so first up, let's answer these questions. So we asked, what is a CV? We said that a CV is a detailed account of all your work history, education, and skills. Do you have a CV? Well, I'm sure that you do. Maybe in Italian, but maybe not in English, because in some situations, the Italian CV might be a little different from the English CV in terms of structure. So I do have a CV, an English CV, of course. Do you have an English CV? Yes, I do. But of course, I converted my English CV into an Italian CV because I'm living in Italy. But for you, an Italian who has an Italian CV, of course, you have to convert it into an English CV, which might be a little different. Now, number 4, what makes a good CV? This is a very good question. There's so many elements that create a good CV. So it's not only giving information, but of course, giving detailed, specific information in a specific order, with order, of course. What makes a bad CV? This is also an important question. The don'ts of writing a CV. There are many things you shouldn't do when you write a CV. So let's talk about it a little bit. So, what makes a good CV? The first thing that makes a good CV is not only all that experience that you have, but the most important experiences. So, you might have had 12 jobs in your life. Some might have lasted for maybe a couple weeks, some might have lasted for 2 years, some might have lasted for 1 month. But the most important thing is showing a level of stability. So if you've been in a job for a longer period of time, it is better to put that into your CV as compared to a job that you've been into for like 1 week. That doesn't really show a level of stability because the employer wants to find out if you are stable, if you'll be able to stay in the job. So, the best information, the best work experience to put into your CV is that work experience that lasted over a period of time. So, for example, maybe a year could be the minimum length of time for a job that you would have had that I would recommend putting in your CV. So if you had a job for a year, that's good. At least it shows a level of stability as well. But anything under a year might not be the most appropriate to put in that CV. So that's the first thing, putting the job experience for longer periods of time. That shows stability. Another thing that makes a good CV is, of course, the structure of the CV, how you structure the information. If you have all the information all over the place, then it shows that you're not organized. You don't have that level of organizational skills. And of course, a lot of employers or companies are looking for people who are organized, who have good organizational skills. So even from looking at your CV, an employer can decide, oh, you know what? We don't want this person because they have no level of organization in their even in their CV. They haven't even reached the stage of an interview yet, but they can't even organize their information in the CV. So they're not the best person for the job. Another thing is, of course, good grammar and good spelling. Of course, if an employer, a company, or an HR manager sees a CV that has a lot of errors in it, hmm, it shows that you might not be the best person in terms of uh, writing structured emails, writing correspondence to clients, because your level of punctuation or your level of grammar is not to that standard. So, good grammar and good spelling is important. That's why it's very important to check your CV after you've completed it to make sure everything is correct. So those are just a few of the things that are important for making a good CV. Yeah. So we've got experience, the most valuable experience. Maybe the job that has been that you've been in for a long period of time. Remember that experience for smaller, shorter experiences in terms of jobs might not be the best to include in your CV unless it is something very specific to the job that you're applying for. So maybe you might have been in an internship per se. It's not really a job, but an internship. You're not making a salary, but you're observing in a company. Then that could be good experience to put in your CV. So that's more specific. It was an internship. And normally internships don't last very long. But in that case, it would be important if it's related to the job that you're applying for. If it's not related, I don't think it is the best thing to include in your CV, especially if it's for a short period of time. So always remember that. And of course, good grammar, good spelling is very important. So those are just some points. There are many others, but these are some points that are positive and negative when writing a CV. Writing a CV. So, as you mentioned, CV is short for curriculum vitae. So, a curriculum vitae or CV is a personal document which lists and describes your educational, and professional experiences um, to show that you are the best person for the job. That is what the CV is for. You're trying to impress the employer. As such, don't write an autobiography, important, but list only the most pertinent information to highlight your strengths. Now, pertinent, of course, means the most important information to highlight your strengths for the position. So, an autobiography is basically telling your life story, basically. We don't want to hear your life story. We want to hear and we want to see the most important experiences that will help you to get that job. Hi, Sergio. Welcome, Sergio from Bologna. Oh, you don't have an English CV. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, of course, this hopefully will help you to create your own English CV, Sergio. Yeah. Good. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. So, as I mentioned before, so the CV is to help you to push your skills and push your experiences to the employer for that specific job that you're applying for. So, your strengths are very important. Sometimes, maybe a weakness might be a good opportunity to show that you're balanced. Maybe you're not always, you're not always a perfectionist, but sometimes there are areas that you need to work on. Normally, we will talk about the weaknesses in the interview, not more so in the CV. The strengths are more important in the curriculum vitae than the weaknesses. Okay, so basically, do not write an autobiography. Write the most important information for that specific job, or the most important information to help you to get that job. Okay, so here's an example of a curriculum vitae. So here, the first thing that you see is the heading. Now in English CV, we always put a heading. The heading should show your name in a large, easily legible font, meaning a text that is easily readable, not something you have to find a magnifying glass to read or glasses to read. It must be identifiable, meaning big enough for everyone to see. It is common to put your contact information, including your address, your phone number, and your email address directly below your name. So the first thing is your name in bold, as you can see with Cindy Smith. Then the second line should at least have your contact information, your address, and your phone number. Normally, the third row would be for your email address or maybe a social media link or a social media name. But normally, we only include the social media links or the name unless it's a business type of name. For example, I would not put cooldre@gmail.com because it's very casual. Maybe if I put my full name, for example, Andre Hinkson@gmail.com, your first and last name. So anytime you're putting an email address or you're putting a social media name or a link or anything, make sure it is a professional name, not an email that your friends send you stuff or that has your nickname, or it must be professional. So remember your name in bold, then after you have your address, your contact information, and of course your email and any other important information or contact information that you need for the employer. Now, after that, after the heading, obviously we'll go to the body of the curriculum vitae. But always make sure if your CV is for an application overseas or abroad, make sure you also put the country code before your phone number. So it's very important that the employer knows where you are, how they can contact you, because they might not put the area code. You might not put the area code on your number, and then the employer does not know what country you live in, or, for example, what area code to use to contact you. So it's very important to use the area code of the country before your number. For example, like in Italy, you have 39 You'll put +39, then your area code, and then the number for Italy. So that's what you would put for your contact number. Also, after your heading, the objective should follow. So you have the heading, all your information, your name, your contact information, your email address, your social media link, etc. Then after your heading, then you start with the objective. So let's look at the objective. Oh, before that, let's look at some examples of the heading before we move on to the objective. So we've got A, we've got B, C, and D. So these are different examples of a heading. Now, tell me, Sergio, if you're still there, tell me which one do you think is the better option for the CV? Is it A, B, C, or D? And then when you choose, I want you to tell me why you chose that specific letter. Which one? Is it A, B, C, or D that is more appropriate for the CV? Now remember that the CV at least, not the CV, the heading at least must be legible. You must be able to read it effectively. It must be well structured and very, how should I say, very uh, symmetrical, if for lack of a better word. Okay, so you said, oh, Kiara, welcome, Kiara. Kiara says D, and Sergio says B. D and B. Well, I can understand C, oh, B, sorry, B. It's big enough. The information is there underneath. So you said Kiara says D because the email address is below the name. I think that is more professional. Okay, good. But B and also C and D have the email under as well. So B or D? So Sergio says that B, I think that is a clear structure. Yeah, it is a clear structure. Yeah. John Smith is big. You can see it well. The structure of the address and the phone number and the email address are also there. You're correct. The structure is also good. But for me, I would use A. Why A? Because A is more centered. Everything is centered. It's more symmetrical. So the information in all of the other examples are good, but it's the layout, it's the structure of it. So A is more acceptable, I would say, because it is more centered in the heading, if you understand what I'm saying. So B could be one as well. D, maybe a little too much because you have too much information on the left and on the right. And then you have John Smith in the middle. It's a little confusing and weird. C could also be used as well, but generally when you're doing a heading, it should be centered. It should be in the middle of the document. So A is the most appropriate heading to use for a CV, but not too bad. B could be used. D, not so much. It's a little small as well. D is kind of small. The font is small. But I think A is the better option. Maybe B as well, but I think that John Smith might be a little too big. A little too big. But A is a little better because it's big enough and it also has the bold, so you can see it more effectively. But not too bad of a choice. So A is the one that I would use. Okay, so let's look at the objectives now. We were looking at the objectives before. Remember, the objectives come right after the heading. It's the first thing in your CV. So let's look at these options. I want you to choose the best option for a CV objective and tell me why you chose that objective. So the first one, A, seeking a position in marketing which will utilize my creative and interpersonal skills. Not bad. Then we have B, I'm looking for a marketing position because my colleagues have always described me as a very enthusiastic and creative person. Hmm. Or C, a position in marketing. So, which one of these three would be the most suitable objective for the CV? Kiara and Sergio, which one you think is the better option for the CV? Got the first one, the second, the third. Which one is more professional? Which one sounds better? Okay, Kiara says A. Why is it the best option, Kiara? A. Okay, Sergio says A too. So tell me why. Why is A the better option? Okay, Kiara says it's clear, small, and sounds better. Okay, Sergio. Oh, you agree with Kiara as well? Okay. So it's clear, small, and sounds better. Hell, let's look at it. So, A, seeking a position in marketing which will utilize my creative and interpersonal skills. B, I'm looking for a marketing position because my colleagues have always described me as a very enthusiastic and creative person. And C, a position in marketing. Yep, Kiara, I agree with you. A is the better option. As you said, it's clear, and as Sergio says, there are the skills. Exactly. So the employer does not want to know your life story. They want to know why you are seeking this position. Why do you want this position? We don't want to know that your colleagues have always described you as a very enthusiastic person, creative person. We don't want to know that. We want to know why you are applying for the position. A is the better option. So, seeking a position in marketing, you're very precise about what position you're looking for and what, and the reason why you are applying for this position, because you want to utilize your creative and interpersonal skills. So you're saying what position you're applying for, and you're saying why you're applying for it. And of course, you're giving the employee what your strengths are for the position. So those are the three important points we use for the objective. It doesn't have to be a life story, something short and to the point and concise. So A is the better option. C does not say anything. Okay, I'm applying for a position in marketing. The cover letter already says you're applying for a position in marketing. It's like repeating yourself. You're not giving me any more information. You're not telling me why do you want this position. So C doesn't say anything. It's too short. It doesn't give any more details. It's it's too vague, basically. Too vague. It doesn't express anything. So C, never use C. B is too much. We don't need to know your life story, but A is shorter, it's more concise and summarized. So that's the important thing in your objective is the position you're applying for, why you are applying for it, and what skills do you have for this position. Excellent. Good job, Sergio and Kiara. Let's move on. Now, the body of the CV, which has the most information in the CV, the body of the CV. So the body of your CV should follow a logical order. So remember before, Sergio, we talked about having structure in your CV. Some of the good things to use in your CV is good order and good structure. For example, since you have objective at the top, which refers to a specific position or type of position, it would make sense to follow that with a skills summary or chronological list of your work experience. So after your objective, and you've mentioned your skills, it's important to follow that with your skills summary, which would include your work experience in chronological order, starting with your most recently held position. Yeah. The first you start with the most recent, and then you go down to the past, the more past job experiences. So you start with the most recent, the newest, and then you go to the oldest. Um, yeah, so You start with the recently held position. You can also choose to list the most relevant job experience first. Follow this with your educational qualifications. So you can either go in chronological order, or you can start with the most important or most relevant job experience first for the position you're applying for. Most of us in English, we write the most recent job experience first and then the oldest. Some people do write the most relevant job experience first in relation to the job you're applying for, and then the less relevant experience after that. So it depends on which one you want to choose. Yeah, so you can use the chronological order with the most recent first, or you can start with the most appropriate or relevant job experience first for that position you're applying for. Good. So you have two options. After that, after your skills and your work experience, then you follow it with the educational experiences. So your educational qualifications, maybe your uh, high school qualification, then you move on with your university. So normally what you do, you start with in chronological order as well. You start with the most recent first, the most recent education, which could be university, then you have high school, then elementary school, middle school, etc. You can go in order as well, chronological order. So always remember you have the skills, the objective first, you have the skills and work experience, and then you have the educational qualifications. Good. So let's look at transferable skills. So which of the following are transferable skills? Now, what do they mean by transferable skills? Now, transferable skills are those skills that are used in any job, that is relevant for any job. For example, you might have one specific skill that can work in any situation. So let's look at some of these skills. You have A, computer general, B, organization, C, leadership and management, D, marketing and sales, E, communication, F, accounting software and systems, G, after sales service, H, Dutch German translation. And I, visual post-production computer programs for photos and video. That one is a little complicated. I have no clue about that area, that particular skill, only a little bit. So these are skills in general. Now, what I want you to do, Sergio and Kiara, is to choose the ones that are transferable, the ones that can be used in any job position, that would be relevant for any job position. So which ones do you choose? I'll give you 10 seconds to look through and choose the ones that are transferable skills. So you've got computer, general, organization, leadership and management, marketing and sales, communication, accounting, software and systems, after sales service, Dutch German translation, and visual post-production computer programs for photos and videos. Got 10 seconds. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Okay, so B, Kiara says organization. Sergio says computer, general. Anything else that's transferable? Communication, okay. Anything else? Or that's it? So we've got 3 so far. Any others you think are transferable? Yeah, Kiara, Sergio said computer general in the beginning. But cool. All right, so let's see which ones are transferable. Hold on a moment. Okay, so computer general. Great job, Kiara and Sergio. General computer knowledge is very important for any job. Oh, he said leadership as well. Leadership. Okay. All right. So let's continue. So we've got computer general, as I said, is very important for most jobs because a lot of jobs use technology now. They use computers, they use computer software to do certain things. Even a receptionist has to use a computer. Supervisor, different positions need to use computer skills in order to do their job. So I think that is a transferable skill, a very good transferable skill. B, let's look at organization. Is it a transferable skill? You guys said yes. And it is a transferable skill. Having a level of organization is important in any job you have. It's relevant to any position. Yeah, you must be able to have order. You must be able to do things in an organized way. You have to be structured in order to, of course, manage your time wisely. So organization is very important. Now let's look at leadership and management. Is it important? Sergio says yes. You're correct. So leadership and management is very important because if you want to be promoted, if you want to climb the ladder, the corporate ladder, then you need to have leadership and management skills. And most people want to grow in the company. They want to do better. They want a bigger position, a higher position. So having leadership and management skills is very important, a very important transferable skill that can work in any position. Now let's look at marketing and sales. No one mentioned marketing and sales because it's not a transferable skill. So marketing and sales is not a transferable skill. It is more specific for that particular field of job. So someone who's into advertising, who's into marketing, into sales, that is specific to that particular position. So that is not a transferable skill. That is more specific. Communication, yes, exactly. Communication is a transferable skill. And if you have no communication, how are you supposed to work with other people? How are you supposed to do your job? How are you supposed to speak with clients? How are you supposed to do these things? You have to have communication, right? Exactly. English speaking and writing is very important as well. That's not included here, but that is important as well, Sergio. The list is a part of the list, but that is important too. So being able to speak correctly and speak clearly and write clearly, especially in emails as well, is very important as well. So communication, this is communication. English speaking and writing is communication. So that is important and that is transferable from every position or every job that you do. Accounting software and systems. Is it transferable? No, it's not transferable. Accounting and software, accounting software and systems is more specific, just like marketing and sales. Everyone does not have to be an accountant or know how to use accounting software. Yeah, exactly, Sylvia. Uh, they don't have to understand accounting systems unless they are doing accounting for a company or specific business. It is more specialized. It is not a general transferable skill. Now let's look at after sales service. Is that a transferable skill? Anyone? Transferable or not? And once again, welcome, Sylvia. Thanks for joining us as well. Exactly. So Sylvia and Kiara are correct. They're not transferable skills. After sales service, as well as Sergio, after sales service is more specialized as well. For people that work in maybe retail, or maybe work in a department store or sells specific items that need the after sales service. So if you're buying things online or you're a company that sells things online or sells things in general, you need to have an after sales service to deal with customer problems and different questions that customers might have as well. So that is more specific. Every company does not need after sales service experience. Mainly for companies that sell things need an after sales service. For example, someone who works on the street, for example, how should I say, a garbage man who cleans the garbage or the trash. They don't need after sales service because they don't deal with customers in that sense. So the after sales service is not necessarily a transferable skill. Dutch, German, English, sorry, Dutch, German translation. Is it transferable? Dutch to English, sorry, Dutch to German translation. Is it a transferable skill? I wish I could speak Dutch and German, but unfortunately I don't. Exactly, Kiara and Sergio. No, it's not a transferable skill. That's more specialized for maybe a company that deals with Dutch and German clients who need a translator, right? Who needs to speak the different languages. Or maybe it's, for example, you're working as a translator. You need to translate text or translate conversation between client and the company. So it's more specialized. So language translation is not necessarily a transferable skill because maybe most companies don't deal with foreign clients or foreign investors. They only deal with English speaking people. So there's no need for a German or Dutch or language translation. And the last one, visual post production computer programs for photos and video. This one is a long one. Is it a transferable skill or no? Kiara says English and Chinese are better than Dutch. You have a point. Is it depends on the market, because in this case, if you do business, like for example, I know in Italy we do a lot of business with the Chinese and Asia, so you need English. You need, well, in this case, you need Italian to Chinese translation, or maybe the English to Chinese translation as well, because they do speak English. I think that's their second language as well. So in this case, it depends on the market you're in. For example, in my country, I think we deal with South America. So we have a lot of um, Spanish or Portuguese, but generally our second language they ask us to learn is Spanish. So in Barbados, in my country, English to Spanish translation is more appropriate for that market. So in this case, yeah, it's not a transferable skill. It's more specific market that you're dealing with. And of course, the last one, as we said, no, it's not a transferable skill. Visual post-production computer programs for photos and video, that's very specific, very specific field. This is for someone who obviously deals in film or video creation or video editing, or yeah, so that is a specific area, so that's not a transferable skill. So the transferable skills are, as we mentioned before, oops, let me go back, excuse me. So the transferable skills, as we said before, are computer general, organization, leadership and management, communication, and practically that's it. So let's move on now. So remember, when you're doing your curriculum vitae or your CV, it is important to include those transferable skills. So those are the skills that are important in the position you're applying for. It is best not to really give the work experience that does not relate to the job you're applying for, because then you're wasting space on your paper, on your CV, and of course, you're wasting the people's time. So only usually mention the work experience that relates to the job and those transferable skills we just mentioned as well. That can cover any specific position or any specific field. All right, so the final section. Now, the final section should list any certifications or awards you may have received in addition to your diplomas. Any other skills, such as computer skills or language proficiency, could be listed under skills. If you have passed the language proficiency exam, list this under certifications as well as under skills, specifying your level. So remember, we had objectives, then we had work experience, then we had education. Now, after education, you have the final section, which is other certifications or other achievements, things you would have accomplished that might not necessarily be specific to the job, but might have some importance in your personal development. So in this case, certifications, maybe for example, you might have received a certification in martial arts, taekwondo, or one of those arts. So you can mention that under certifications or under achievements because it is something that is valuable to your personal development. Maybe being able to learn a martial arts is something that can be associated with, for example, organization. Maybe it can be associated with discipline. So these are important certifications that might be good to put into your certification section, or sometimes we call it achievements. Maybe there are awards that you would have won. Maybe you won an award for volunteering at a homeless shelter, or you won an award for being charitable. You're part of a charity or something like that that shows your personal development and personality could be good to put under certifications. As I mentioned, if you pass the language exam, that can go under both your certifications and also your skills. So because that is a qualification as well. So you can put it under qualifications, or you can put it under, which is education, or you can put it under achievements or certifications at the end. So in this final section, you can mention things that might not necessarily be specific to the job, but something that could show your employer that you're very disciplined and that you have achieved a lot of things, or maybe you have done a lot of uh, charity or philanthropic work. So those things you can put under achievements or certifications. So that is the final section. Okay, let's continue. Okay. Good. So here, let's look at the example of education and certifications. So for example, here we have the CELTA, which is English, is it TESOL or TEFL certification, University of Cambridge examination. So you would have done a CELTA, or you would have done Cambridge First or Cambridge Advanced. So those you can put under education and certifications, or you can put it under achievements or at the end. But normally we put these certifications under education as well. So you have either choice. You can put them under education, or you can put it under achievements. It's up to you. But I would normally put it under education. And as I said, after, if you want to put something like an award you won, or maybe a hobby, something that's more that shows your personal development, you could put that under achievements at the last section as well. Hi, Walter. What's up? Thank you for joining us today. So yeah, so education and certifications are usually your qualifications, your university degree, maybe a language certification, something that can be very helpful or very very relevant to the job you're applying for. So this is just an example of the education and certifications. And normally we list them by the most recent first, and then you go down the line in that way, in a chronological order as well. Okay, now let's look at this. Let's match the words to their definitions. So we've got pertinent, highlight, qualification, proficiency, skill, and specify. And we have the definitions. We've got certification, for example, in exams, emphasize strengths, relevant information, state explicitly experience, ability to organize and lead, and competency in English. So I want you to match these words to their definitions. Can you do that for me? I'll give you 10 seconds. I love giving 10 seconds. It keeps you thinking quickly. Yeah. So match them up. What are the correct words with the definitions? Pertinent, highlight, qualification, proficiency, skill, specify, certification, emphasize, relevant, state explicitly, ability, and competency. Alrighty, so let's look at the first one, pertinent. What does pertinent mean? Match it to the definition. Skills and ability, Kiara says. Skills and ability. Sylvia says highlight or emphasize. What about you, Walter? Sergio? Any ideas pertinent? So you've got pertinent is relevant. Kiara says pertinent is relevant. Skills is ability. Highlight is oh, okay, I now see what you're doing. Okay, so let's look at them. So pertinent, first one, pertinent, means, as Kiara says, relevant. So pertinent is relevant. Yeah, exactly. So the relevant or the most important information. That is what pertinent means, relevant. Highlight. So Sylvia says highlight is to emphasize. Yeah, let's look at it. Correct. To highlight or to emphasize. Exactly. So maybe if you want to highlight something, you highlight it with a highlighter, a marker. You highlight the most important information to emphasize that particular information or that particular point. So highlight is to emphasize. Qualification, Sergio says certification, and you are correct. Qualification is the certification as well. Now let's look at proficiency. Anyone wants to try proficiency? What is proficiency? Proficiency. Competency, Walter says competency. Yeah, so proficiency, competency, and you are correct. Excellent. So proficiency means competency. Exactly. Competency. And let's look at skill. Skill. Somebody said skill earlier. Was it Kiara? Right. Skill is an ability. Okay, let's see. Skill is ability. Correct. Ability, the skills to organize, the ability to organize, the skills to lead. And of course, the final one is specify. Specify. What is it? State explicitly, to specify, to be more detailed, to specify or detail what you're talking about. So that's to specify. So these are very important words when we're thinking about writing a CV. We have to use pertinent or relevant information for the job. We have to highlight or emphasize your strengths. You have to show your qualifications or your certifications, your exam certifications, your university certifications or qualifications. Proficiency is used for languages. For example, your proficiency in English, your competency in English, how well you can speak English, or how well you understand English. And of course, skill is your abilities. I have the ability or skill in computer programming, or I have a skill in, for example, singing. I can sing, so that's a skill. So that's what your skill or ability is. And to specify, of course, to specify why you are applying for this job, to be detailed and specific about why you are applying for this job. So normally when you specify, you give the most important information in the shortest possible way. So those are important words when writing a CV. So always remember, guys, I'm going to finish up shortly. Always remember, for a CV, you have to have a heading. The heading must be legible. It must be big enough to see and to read. It must have your name. Then it must have your contact information, your address, your email, and any specific social media, like LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn account, you can also put that on your heading. But always make sure it's structured correctly, it is big enough, and it is centered in the middle of the document, in the middle of the heading. Some people put it on the side, on the left. Some people put it on the right. Some people put information on the left and on the right. But the most appropriate form for your heading is at the top in the center with your name and your contact information. So let's go back to that particular slide so we can show it again for those who came late. Oops, let me go back. Good. So remember here, so A was the appropriate heading for your CV. So we have John Smith in bold, it's big enough, as well as underneath the name is the address and the contact information. It's centered in the middle, which is very pleasing to the eye. So most employers are looking for that level of structure as well. The other ones are okay, C and B, but generally we prefer to put it in the middle, in the center. Remember, after your heading, we have the objectives. Remember the objectives. A is the most appropriate one. So remember, mention the position you're applying for, mention why you are applying for the job, and mention your skills, the skills that are relevant to the appropriate job position you're applying for. After the objectives, we have the body of the CV, which is usually starts with the work experience, your skills, yeah, one heading. After that, your education. And then after that, you can put achievements or other certifications after that. Remember, transferable skills, those skills that can be used in any job position. Yeah, always remember that. We have general computer knowledge, organization, leadership and management skills, and communication are very important in any job. So those are transferable skills. The others are more specific. And of course, remember, as we said, the final section, you can use any other achievements, like awards you've won, any other certification that might be relevant, maybe to your personal development, any hobbies you think that would be important for your employer to know that can help you get that position as well. So always remember in your CV to make sure you are concise and make sure that you have all the necessary and pertinent information for that position. We weren't able to look at the cover letter today, but remember the cover letter is just a letter of introduction to the employer and a request for applying for the job, as well as request to set up an interview. So in that cover letter, the most important information is why you're applying for the job, who you are, yeah, who you are, what job you're applying for, a more specific skill or strength, as well as an invitation or a request for an interview. So that is the cover letter. The CV is the detailed information about your work or educational experience, as well as any pertinent or important information to apply for that specific job. Great, guys. Remember, always check your CV for any errors, any grammatical errors, any spelling errors, punctuation, and always remember that it must be structured and put in a specific order. Well, guys, thank you so much. Kiara, Sergio, Sylvia, and who was the other person? Walter. Yeah, how could I forget Walter? Have a great day. Be safe. Stay indoors, and see you soon. Stay tuned for our other webinars between levels 8 and 10. And of course, stay tuned to our social media for more information about My English School. I'm Andre. See you later. Bye.